ready to get on stream. I think he wants to get on stream. I think that as soon as he possibly can, as soon as all this SEC stuff is done, maybe he doesn't get back on. Maybe the Interpol stuff holds him back. But I think he wants to be on stream worse than anything, because I don't think anything's going to happen. Obviously, we're tied to ETH. That sucks. But I don't think the community or the tokens or whatever have a chance of doing anything without him being face forward public. If you don't think that, you're lying to yourself, and you're coping with the narrative that, oh, he doesn't work for us, you can't have those expectations. But I think he is
Yeah, of
chomping at the
course.
bit to get back. Yeah, of course, absolutely. But most of what you said is spot on. Like, he's made a lot of mistakes. And, someone put up a poll the other day asking, like, do you trust Richard? Is Richard this, Richard that? It's like, we got to give Richard at least the opportunity to be able to speak for himself when he can finally show himself. It's been years since he's been able to just come out, go on stream, and just talk, like, with the open chat. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure there's a lot he wants to say. And Eric said a lot of things that were probably true the other night. He probably hates everybody. But, like, if his leadership were that strong, when the leader leaves, like, if he was doing what he should have been doing, then the community would have stayed together
We
tight
have
knit like
some
they should
breaking
have been.
news. The
Yeah.
pdai minter just minted 35 million pdai.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna keep minting until people stop buying and stop
Yeah.
providing liquidity. So
This was not how this was supposed to go. This was not mission success. This is not a good look. This is trash. This is a bad job, through and through. I can give you guys technical examples, right, of just how they decided to develop. He talks about being such a great project manager. That's false. That was reported. It's just they didn't take anybody seriously, right? When you launch a chain, you can say no expectations, you can say whatever you want, but if this thing is meant to have any purpose in the crypto ecosystem, first of all, it's a very competitive ecosystem. So if you don't want to compete, don't do it. It's not a good idea. Like, just sit back, use the stuff that's already out there, have a good time. There is something called market making. And if you don't understand how to do that, and you have no ability or desire to do it, do not start a chain. It is just the most obvious thing ever. If you guys want to know why Solana was so successful this past cycle, market making. Go to look at that chart against BTC. Where you're going to find is that they kept it on par with BTC for an entire year. Solana is actually the one who did the same run that ETH had, right, during that bull market. ETH did 400% over Bitcoin, right, ratio wise, and it's been down ever since, pretty much. So it's in the last like 2.5 years, ETH essentially has lost 65% against Bitcoin. The winner was Solana. Solana did the same 400% over Bitcoin, except the market making. What you got to understand, after Alameda and FTX blew up, the quants, like the people who were actually doing work, because we know it wasn't Sam, right? They went and they became market makers on Solana. The entire year, the entire past year, if you look at the chart, it's not down and to the right like the ETH BTC chart is. It is dead sideways. So anybody coming in bringing money into crypto can choose Bitcoin, of course. Yes, you have more collateral options. It's it's pretty decent investment. Except you can't do anything on Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't even have stable coins, right? So unless you're going to go custody third party, which brings risks and all of that, you have another option here, which is Solana, which has market makers that understand what they're doing, and they're keeping it at least as good as Bitcoin, and at times a little better, at times a little bit worse. But because you have so many more options, it becomes a really desirable product on the market. Nobody's really doing that for Ethereum. When you look at Pulsechain, there's no market making, and there's no facilitation of capital. If you hear the Justin Sun interview when he went on Panos' favorite show, the Mario Nawfal. I'm just joking. Don't drop me, dude. I'm just a joke. But he talked about all of this. So Justin Sun, right? Not our favorite guy, not our favorite chain, whatever. But he understands that as a founder of the chain, he literally started his little monologue, right? It's hard for him to speak English, but he started his monologue saying, as a founder of a chain, and he talked about making sure the chain has sufficient capital to actually operate. You need to do that. If it's not going to come from the SAC funds, fine, but please show me someone else who would be willing to bring that capital. The answer is no one. Think about, like, so we'll talk about capital, we'll talk about market making, and there's a couple other. Here's the rundown. Here's the bullet points if you're gonna tune out and not listen. Okay. First, you need to have capital on chain. Someone's got to actually make sure that happens. Typically, that's going to be the founder of the chain. Two, you need market making. Typically, that's also handled by the founders of the chain, or the foundation, right? Pulsechain doesn't have that, so I'm just going to keep saying the word founder. Founder, foundation, right? One of the two. Next, you need to actually engage developers to come build stuff on your chain, which means in Justin's case, he even talked about how he would work with teams, right? He had it cut out in his little organization that they would have a contact, that they would actually help developers, accomplish building protocols on this chain. Of course, right? People need stuff to actually do on the chain. You need to make sure it's high quality. And if you support that, people are going to be willing to do it. If there's chains that'll actually pay you to come and develop on their chain. Of course, Pulsechain doesn't do that. What's the fourth thing? Infrastructure, right? The foundation or founder of the chain has to provide infrastructure for the chain because nobody else is going to do it. So you guys can say there's no expectations, no anything, but you have to realize that there's just these basic principles that have to occur in order for this thing to work. If they don't work, it's like, we build a house and we say, oh, we have no expectations of the builder, right? Or the architect. No, your expectation is he's going to put up a foundation. He's going to make a frame, right? You're not maybe he's not going to pick what couch you
Can I
end up
respond?
ultimately getting on. Well, hold on, let me just finish 5 more seconds and I'll take a break here, right? I just think it's interesting to kind of go through this stuff, right? So all of those points that I just mentioned, none of those things occur on Pulsechain, right? None of them. All right, you know what? I'll take a break here and we can kind of kick it around. Go ahead, man. I just don't see who's speaking.
Yeah.
Tech?
I think there's, or the hexagons just fundamentally had like a misunderstanding of what this was actually supposed to be. Like, this was never supposed to be like a real chain with real developers and real like innovation and so on. Richard even before Pulsechain launched actually said, I don't even need anyone to build on the chain, because Richard's motive was basically all about ego boosting and just having his narcissism fed, basically. And the way he was going to do that is just by taking the SEC money, buying ETH, and then selling ETH, and then just injecting those profits into the chain. So it was never anything about having a real chain or something like that. It was just basically his minions hold his coins, and then when he makes his trading profits, that goes up. And the entire no expectation stuff was literally just a legal disclaimer. That's like when you're American and you go on a website and then you pretend like you aren't American. That's pretty much the same. So I think overall, Richard just never even wanted to have like a real chain like Solana, where they do like crazy upgrades for the chain all the time, and where they have tons of grants for developers and new apps being built and so on. Like, that was never the goal. The goal was just basically to have SIM coins for Richard Hart, that where you hold them, you get rewarded, because he thought he's such a genius trader that he can just always multiply the SEC funds each cycle, and that if he didn't speculate incorrectly, that would have actually worked. Like, if he had bought ETH at 1K and sold at 4K, for example, then we would have billions now that he could just inject into the chain. And then no one would even care about any of the technological failures, or that there are no developers, or that there's no liquidity or no market making. And all the things you said is all true, but it's really just a fundamental misunderstanding of what Pulsechain was actually supposed to be. Like, it was never supposed to be like a real chain like Solana. It was just basically Richard sim coins.
Richard bought the top on ETH with ETH on purpose, by the way. He tweeted that he bought the top. That's just a psyop.
Yeah, I mean,
Can you explain
that is
Can you explain that?
probably the most embarrassing
Yeah,
move I've ever seen.
Almighty, can you explain the that whole thing there, please?
I gotta find the post, bro. But he literally said, like this post if you've ever bought the top instead of selling the top. So if you think about everyone's narrative is based on him pumping the chain, right? And we all look at the sack bags like our money, even though we're not supposed to have expectation from it. So as soon as he got over, he was over his sack bag, like he bought, boom. If then ETH went to 8K, you would say, oh, he's got double the sack bag, he's gonna inject. But if we're underwater the entire time, where he knew he was buying the top, and how long are we gonna be underwater of his trade? No one's bullish on Pulsechain because he's
He didn't
underwater.
know that he was
So,
buying the top. That's ridiculous.
bro, I can show you the post, bro. He said, like this post if you've ever bought the top instead of selling. That means he knew he was blasting top. And at the same time, the God whale pulled his ETH position, his V3 ETH position. So he
Yeah, I was
bought
about
into
to
the
say
God
that.
whale's position and he
He
yanked it.
he
Come
didn't
on,
know
bro.
he was buying the top, because what he actually said
But
when he was buying.
you guys think that Godwell is rich, right?
I assume, right? No
I
Can
one
I
assume
knows,
as
can
well.
I respond to this?
but even if it's not, hold on. Even if
Yeah,
it's
but we're
not,
asking
the
questions,
God
man.
whale is in connection with Richard. Like it's probably not the same person because the God whale's done some stupid stuff, but it would make sense that he has contact with him because
Keck.
of the EHEX thing, because of the
So
ETH pool,
So
so
Keck,
much.
why do you think that he didn't buy the top? Like
no,
he
he
didn't do it
didn't
on purpose?
intentionally buy the top. He basically tweeted, in a market with no dips, buying the top is buying the dip. And the thing was that Richard's plan was to buy the bottom, but he completely missed the bottom. And there was one tweet where he said, things I usually missed the bottom. And then he basically had this theory the entire way up, because he was bear charting the entire way up, that as long as interest rates are high, asset prices would go down. And that was working for a while, like in 2022. But then the market turned, and he basically kept in this mindset that as long as interest rates are high, this is just basically dead cat bounces. And then he completely missed the entire run up to 4K or 3.7K or whatever. And then basically his thesis that this is still a bear market got invalidated, because Richard is a basic TA guy that.
Richard was on Fox News when ETH was 1K. You're not gonna tell me he didn't buy $800 ETH, $1,000 ETH just for shits and
No,
giggles by himself,
he
but not
probably
with SAC
bought on
funds.
private funds, but not with the SEC fund. And the
Okay,
point that we
that's my
argue,
point though. Is
the point that
you have
no, no,
expectation of those SAC funds.
the
So
point.
why would he buy cheap so that he's up the entire time and you all are bullish on him pumping the bags with that money? You're not bullish on him pumping the bags underwater, right? So what happens
Hold
if
on,
Richard? Hold
you
on.
got to listen to the argument. Hold on. I know
Okay,
what you're
go
saying,
ahead.
right?
Go
We've
ahead.
heard this argument laid out like 800 times, right? Hold on, Kek, why don't you go and then let me go after him. Go ahead, Kek.
So I think he probably had some like smaller private bets where he bought throughout, because he wasn't 100% sure or whatever. But I think to say that he intentionally bought the top, which he know would be a real top, not just a top that keeps making new highs, which is what he clearly tweeted and thought, is crazy. Like he clearly thought. There was also one tweet where he said, I bought 3,750 or whatever, and I told you to buy, and now it's 4K, and you can thank me or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but that's roughly what he said, because his theory was basically that he was bear charting the entire way up, but then this thesis got invalidated once the old all-time high on Bitcoin was broken, basically, because then he could no longer say, okay, this is no longer a bear market, because before he was bear charting the entire way up, and he couldn't do that anymore. So he just got FOMO and didn't want to miss the entire bull run, because his entire thing was basically that he took our money in 2021 and 2022 and then was going to buy the bottom of the next bear market. And he kind of missed that. But then he said, okay, he even gave you his targets for Bitcoin, like 209K or something like that. And then he missed that. And he said, okay, there's still enough meat left on the bone, because it's maybe 3.7K. So it's not even at all-time high. And what the chart usually does is it goes at least 3x over the old all-time high. And Richard is actually very, very simple-minded, because he just looks at the chart and says, oh, look what it did last time, and then just extrapolates that it will do that again. And that's basically how he got wrecked. And if you think that he just intentionally bought the top, which you know was a real top, then you're crazy. Because there's also a hexologist stream, which was right around the actual ETH bottom, where he actually talked about it's super important if you have that kind of amount of money that you actually get it right and don't get it wrong, because you can never make that money back and so on. So if you fuck up the trade, then it's just kind of over for you. You pretty much have to get it right. And I think to assume that he wanted to get wrecked on that setback is completely retarded.
Like breakout of this market after we had that long consolidation at the bottom, right? Had that big bear where everything got destroyed, right? Banking, all of that, FTX, all of it, right? What typically happened, then you had, so basically you Gaza happened, right? You can mark it. October 7, after that, that's when the pump starts. All right. I'm not saying it's related. I'm just saying that happens to be the date. You had January come around. They launched the ETFs. You had a little bit of a pullback in the new year, which is normal. You have some profit taking because everybody was in profit. We had pumped into almost like 30K or something when the ETFs launched. It kind of sat there for a couple of weeks and then it ripped again. Now, you know what did not come up the way Bitcoin did? Well, it was Ethereum. So if you're still operating under this premise that Ethereum is a leveraged play on Bitcoin, you've been totally invalidated. But once you see Bitcoin start to make all-time highs, right? I think it was like in March or so, right, where it started to top out. That's where Richard took the 170,000 ETH. It was about $600 million. So just to backfill a little bit for people who don't know the whole story. Here's the assumption is that if you look at charts from other cycles, you'll see that Bitcoin makes its top, then a short while later, ETH will make its new top, and then alts will run, and then you have a crash, right? That's typically how these cycles go. The difference, so Richard bought assuming that, okay, Bitcoin has topped. It's sort of a matter of time before we get that new top, that new price discovery mode on Ethereum. However, it never happened. And the reason it never happened was because of all that capital that would have created that blow off top on ETH went to Solana. You can go and you can look at this. This is just how it was this cycle. It was not like the others.
Yeah.
And so like Keck pointing this out to you guys, like this is such a big lesson to learn just in investing in finance in life in general. Just because things happen a certain way in the past does not mean that's how they're going to happen in the future. Okay.
Yep.
So obviously now Richard expects this blow off top on Ethereum. It never comes. He basically top ticks $600 million worth of ETH. And then we have a year from March to like, pretty much the next like 6-7 months, we're pretty much sideways. And if you even look, it makes this a bull flag, right? Where you're making lower highs, lower lows, right? And then obviously we get another breakout later, but nobody knows that, right? Now at this point, right, what does Richard think? This is where I got on, and I started to show people that look, lower lows, lower highs, like Richard's got to try to recover some of this position and try to buy back in later, which he would have had ample opportunity to do. Of course, he never does, and this is where all of this like cucking for Richard that he's playing 5D chess. And if you're Richard and you come into your page and you see Pulsechain is getting obliterated the entire time, from March to August was straight down. I don't think you had even very many days between March and August, the end of August, where you even had more than like a 5% day. I'm just talking about PLS. I know there's other things that pop.
And what was his marketing strategy at that time? If you don't mind me interrupting you, I apologize, but I can't just let you guys sit here and slander Richard Hart. I love Richard Hart. I know he has flaws, and I accept a lot of your flaws that you guys have stated, but some of them are very out of line, I believe. So I'm just curious, what was the marketing strategy for Pulsechain at the time?
What do you believe is?
One more thing. To tag to your
let's
ETH
keep this
thing.
neat.
Hold on. Can you go buy 171,000 ETH right now?
Hold on.
You
Let's
can't.
keep it.
That's the
Let's keep
point.
it cordial.
That killed your entire argument. You cannot go buy the same amount of ETH right now because
Yes, you
Richard
can.
bought into. Okay, Richard, go look at the pools.
What do you mean you can't?
Okay, go look.
You can't buy.
No, but I
what are you
don't think
talking
he took a trade at a loss on purpose. So I'm not on that train.
I don't
I'm
think
here
he
to
did
defend
either.
him.
If
I'm
you
here
look
in
at
other
if you
words.
look at the chain, Richard bought into a sell wall. There was a block of Ethereum that was put up, and Richard bought that block.
Yeah, and at the time he was
proven.
also calling for Bitcoin to pull back, I believe, if I had my time frames corrected,
No, but
correct.
what we're saying is, when Richard bought that Ethereum, somebody, don't know who it is, put up a big block of Ethereum for sale, and Richard swiped it. If you went now to try and buy that much Ethereum on the market, it would be very difficult.
Look, there's a way to do it. Typically, you don't want
Yeah,
to
there is
buy
a way to do it.
600 mil.
OTC,
He's
but that's
posted
not what he
about it.
did.
He's posted about it. Buying in two
Okay,
different pools, bro. He's posted about this and how you
Yeah,
can't buy
or
Ethereum.
exactly. Yeah.
Right
Well,
after he did it,
he's
hold on. Right after he did it, he made a bunch of posts where he was showing like this is how much Ethereum you can scoop off of these Uniswap market right now.
dude,
It
but
was insane.
here's the you guys are there's other ways to when you're talking about money that large, he could literally go to the foundation. There
You gotta
are
suck
ways for you to
middleman B.
obtain that kind of there's a way to do it, right? We sort of just covered what his expectation was, right? Like again, these tops, Bitcoin tops, ETH tops, alts run, you get a crash, right? He bought in after he thought Bitcoin made all-time highs. Now we're going to get a price appreciation on ETH, right? He bought over someone's bag, but unfortunately, ETH was not the winner this cycle. It was actually Solana, right? That capital
Yeah.
that would have gone into ETH went somewhere else, which he wasn't anticipating. It's not his fault. Nobody's blaming him
I
for
don't
doing
agree
this.
with you. The money that went for Solana with the market cap of Solana wouldn't have pumped it even 5%. So that's not the reason.
I don't know
Well,
No,
how he
you're
I just
wrong.
gets to
have a
that
big issue. I
What?
conclusion,
have a
but
big issue of
okay.
you guys saying he's a bad trader. He made a bad trade,
He
sure, but how many
okay.
years did he call great Bitcoin
You-
trades?
you-
I don't know if you guys were there, right? But I was there. He made some
So,
great
Okay, that
calls
doesn't
before.
so
check the cycle from 2017 because this cycle is not similar to 2021. This cycle
I am not. I agree.
and
He
the
is
alt
flawed in
season
some
starts
aspects,
now.
but he is a good trader.
Alt season starts in
Have
April.
have y'all
So
ever
okay.
you have
traded?
to
Have y'all
wait.
ever
You
traded
guys have
100
to
million
wait.
plus?
Guys, it's okay to have been a good trader and to have made a mistake. Like, hold on, let's just keep it a buck real quick because we're just setting this up for what we're about to talk about. I don't think we need to argue about if Richard's a good trader or shitty trader or whatever. He
No, no,
clearly
no.
has
I
made a
just
mistake, evidenced by the fact that he is down $300 million multiple times. And this is the argument. Like, here's the thing: is I've debated this for hours and hours and hours. Back when the first time ETH took a big shit, and the same thing is coming around now because it's also taking a big shit. And what people will say is that because he hasn't sold, he technically hasn't lost. Okay, fine. Then let's just talk about the value of the account, right? We're not putting it on Richard that he lost anything. All right, don't worry. But the reality is, it was sort of written on the charts for quite a while. You're making lower lows, lower highs, that you are not getting
Well,
the
and
same
that's why I brought up my marketing
blow off
comment. Is
tops.
at the time he was
But
doing the
marketing, hold
outrage
on, let's not
marketing.
talk
No,
about
no, no,
marketing.
no, 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 no. It's
Everyone
very
hated the
relevant.
mark.
Yeah, exactly.
He
That's what
turned
I wanted to
everybody
say.
off with the
Yes,
outrage marketing,
yes.
and people
Agreed.
got pissed, and
Agreed.
people
Let him
Agreed.
begged him
explain
So
to
was he
real quick.
stop.
watching the
let him
charts? Was he
talk.
watching the chart?
Let him talk.
Who? Freddie?
Trillion, go for it.
Go ahead.
See, this is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay, we can talk about marketing. You can make your point about marketing, but this is what I'm trying to get to, like, illustrate to you guys that, like, this you can't. It's not all about narratives. At some point, if you're an investor, right, you can make money on just about any coin. Any coin. If you figure out its pattern, its cycle, you understand its buyers and sellers, right? You can make money on any coin. It doesn't have to be ETH. It doesn't have to be Pulsechain. It could be anything, right? Anything can make you money. All right. Now, the problem is that once it was sort of made clear on the charts that you were not going to get that subsequent blow off top on ETH, he did nothing. He essentially just went to sleep with the money, and it bled down. You lost $300 million. Now you have to understand what this looks like to the rest of the world, marketing aside. X, believe it or not, does not have as much of an impact on the valuations of serious assets as you might believe. The people who are actually moving like Pulsechain doesn't need like 100 grand. It doesn't need a million. It needs tens and hundreds of millions of dollars to be brought in for it to be a competitor in this landscape. Why? Because that's the bar. You have Ton, you have Base, you have other chains where all of these things are
Bro, why are
being
you
put in
just here to
place.
FUD the
Because
chain, bro?
Listen, listen.
Habibi,
At
you're like
six,
6 years
listen,
old,
bro.
Dude,
dude.
Listen, at
no,
six
bro.
These
You're
things
thousand
just
don't
here to
dollar
work.
FUD the
I
Ethereum,
think
chain, bro.
$1 billion on our foundation. That's just very bullish, and $100 million sends us probably all time high on Pulsechain, and then everyone starts to come then, and that's when you see people actually attract to the chain, not stressed
What
about
are you talking
Richie's trade.
about? If World Liberty Financial is built on Ethereum, man, the stablecoins project of Donald Trump to make the digital dollar on stables on Ethereum how can you? It's going to 6K. It's going to
You didn't raise your hand.
60K.
Be quiet.
No, for sure. But I meant like, yeah, that's a good point. But I'm just saying at least 6K. That's like the minimalist thing. Like, really, that's a very juicy trade no matter what. Because he's looking at $12,000 Ethereum, $15,000 Ethereum. Bitcoin money has to rotate. All these dudes in the stock market TradFi, they got Bitcoin. They just opened up a Bitcoin ETH ETF so that they can have both of them. So now you have TradFi guys are gonna wash trade Bitcoin into ETH because the guys buying that stock aren't gonna care what they have, so they can make fees just going back and forth, back and forth. Money from Bitcoin will rotate into Ethereum. That is it's going to happen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But Bitcoin will make more legs up, and then we see alt season. 420 is a year after the Bitcoin happening, bro. Things are about to be very juicy. We're just down bad, and everyone's coping. But that's my point. GG's.
Money gang.
Let me just add one thing to what you said. Just one
Go
thing.
on. Talk that
I-
quickly
If
because you didn't have your hand up.
if Ethereum goes up 2x, Pulse Chain goes up 4x. Ethereum goes up 10x, Pulse Chain goes up 100x. Pulse Chain, what I've seen from the charts, and I've been tracking the charts very carefully, and you can see it by yourselves too. If Ethereum dumps 2x, if Ethereum dumps 50%, Pulse Chain dumps 75%. It's like Pulse chain is like
Pulsechain is
leveraged
red.
Ethereum. It's like leveraged Ethereum. If Ethereum goes up, Pulse chain goes up even more.
Okay, money gang.
Yeah, what's up, man? A couple of points. I mean, listen, he could have DCA'd on the way up, but we don't really know the situation, right? In terms of why he didn't or whatever. To Almighty's point, right? There was a massive big sell wall by the Goodwill, so he was buying into the sell wall, and the amount of Ethereum that was available. I like to Almighty's point on that. It's just weird to me, right? Like, I know we got Trillion up on the stage. Last couple of years, I think I've been going back and forth with him. All he does is FUD, and I'm just like, why are you here? What's the point? And to Kek's point as well, man, I can see from your bio, I'm looking for your replies and stuff. I don't. A guy who's got 5 figures on Blast, and you're complaining about Pulse Chain. I'm like, bro, Blast was trash, mate. Still is. Based on the first two premises, that is why I believe that statement, that theory. And so when Trillion's coming up, I'm asking him, and I'm saying, bro, like, what is going on with this situation? That's what I'm trying to get to the crux at, and that's the problem. Is he's skirting the idea because he's saying, "Oh, Richard top blasted." Sure, I agree with you. He top blasted with those sack funds, but was there other funds or other wallets that were doing the opposite? And why were they doing the opposite? That may be controlled by or may be Richard's, and that's my question that
Can I
I
I
respond to
can't
can't
this?
seem to understand. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think it's pretty obvious that Richard and the God Whale are somehow coordinating. But at the same time, I don't think it's the same person, and I don't think Richard has that much influence over him because the God Whale also did some really, really suspicious stuff that Richard would never ever do. Like I think he gave Mintra like 10 million and something like that. And I think it's pretty clear that it's not directly Richard, that they just had some relationship in the past. And for the selling ETH, that is also not really a great argument because the Godway was always selling ETH. Like I remember so many times in 2020 when the Godway was actually randomly selling ETH and so on. So he just has so many ETH that he just sells because he basically got his money from the Genesis. So he just sells every now and then. So if you just look at Richard's entire behavior, like Richard was always a guy that pretty much was a straight shooter. He just told you what he said. And I think this like, oh, he was selling on one wallet and buying on this other wallet is just pure cope. Because his entire Twitter history is completely clear that he was bearish on the way up because he thought interest rates are still high, so the bottom isn't in yet. And then when he got invalidated, he bought. That is very obvious. And all of the Twitter history, all of his comments about the markets over years are just consistent with that. And you just think, oh, because there's some Godway wallet that just randomly sold some ETH, which probably wasn't even nowhere
Yeah.
close to in the same
Get mind
valuation
control,
range.
bro.
So
Can I
what about?
respond to that real quick, Kek? So a few points that you just made. First and foremost, because he's fudded ETH before, meaning that your premise is that he doesn't own or didn't buy or didn't bother to buy. I would actually argue that if you look at a lot of big financial institutions, we could go over a lot of big players, big whales in the market. They like to FUD certain coins in order to get more at a cheaper price. We've seen this time and time again with
Yeah, but
BlackRock,
that's
with big
not what
financial
happened here.
institutions, Jamie Dimon.
That's not what
No,
happened here.
I'm just saying it's a tactic used. I'm not, I'm just putting it out there. The other thing that I would say as well is, I mean, a Genesis whale wallet, right? A Genesis ETH wallet isn't going to be able to sell everything in the space of a short period of time. There's a lot of factors that play in. Usually you're DCAing out over time. If you hold a bag that big, you're probably going to sell along the way in multiple different cycles. So to that point,
Yeah,
I think that's just
that was my
normal with a
point.
massive big bag.
His cells are just totally
But
irrelevant.
the argument also,
because he
the
was
other thing I
always
want to put
selling a
out
little
there
bit.
as well, Keck, that you can respond to is, and I see this on a smaller scale, is that I know guys that are selling, especially if they've got public wallets, and I would argue that this cycle, particularly with these set of wallets, are so well tracked, so well monitored, that there are many actions that people are watching, and there's other stuff that are happening on the side with other wallets. I see people do this all the time, where some traders that have public wallets will do one action whilst doing the opposite on another set of wallets that they have privately. And again, it's not me trying to make an excuse or anything like that. I'm just saying that that's just a behavior of a public trader and a wallet
just
collection that is public.
look at the Godway stuff. He probably sold like a few million, and Richard bought 600 million. So that is just complete cope. That he was somehow hedging this trade when he basically sold millions and he bought 600 million.
I'll tell you what, Kick, I gotta look at the date on that. I'm pretty sure it's more than that, but anyway, I'll
but
get
he
back to you
didn't
on
sell.
that
He
once I've
didn't
got the data.
sell. He didn't sell 600 million. Nowhere. He sold maybe like 10, 15, something like that. So that is not really hedging that buy. And I think it's just so obvious, guys, that Richard was just bearish and thought the bottom wasn't in, then got invalidated and just thought, okay, I don't want to miss the entire cycle, and it usually does a 3x over the old all-time high. That's also what he tweeted, and he even gave the targets for Bitcoin, I think 209K, and ETH something like 10 or 12K or something like that. That was because Richard always gave you his entire reasoning. That's also why I think people that say that he's this amazing trader are wrong, because Richard always gave you all of his reasons, and his reasons were just always look at the chart, bro. He was always look what it did last cycle and then just extrapolate forward. That was always what he said, and that is how he was able to climb the top in 2021 so well, because the 2021 cycle was actually pretty predictable in that way. And this cycle has been much more unpredictable. And that is just why he made this fuck up, because he has this very kind of simple logic when he looks at a trade, that he just looks at the chart, what it did last cycle, and then expects that same thing to happen again.
I think that Richard has a fuck ton of Bitcoin, and we're focused on the ETH value price and then the sacrifice value price of our quote unquote money, even though it's not our money anymore. And that's the biggest psyop. That's why I feel that way, is because Richard has thought about this entire situation, this entire sacrifice, this blockchain, what people are going to be gambling on. Why would they buy this blockchain? He knows it's literally because he sent Hex. That's why he sent Hex, so that he could gain a reputation of sending his own coins, things doing good. So now you look at this whole blockchain and everyone's focused on, oh, is he underwater? Is he above water? What is he going to do with the SAC funds? When's he going to rotate them? And that's the biggest psyop for me. And then you look at like his Bitcoin bags and realize he probably has $1 billion in Bitcoin. He probably sold 100K top. Like that's where my head always goes, because no one ever talks about Richard's Bitcoin. Everyone always assumes that he sold the top, bought a bunch of designer, and then he never bought the bottom, when he's called the bottom was 15K. He said 11, but he said with money printing it's probably 15. So he's not stupid and probably DCA'd from 20 down.
You don't know that. That is pure speculation.
Okay, well, you don't know how to trade 100 million
but
plus.
it's
so
also
you're sitting here saying
Hold on,
speculation.
time out, everyone. Can we go back to raising our hands, please? Because I've had my hand up, and I just do want to ask Keck that you said Pulsechain was designed for Richard to do what again? I forget, but you were wrong about it, but I forget what you said.
To pump Pulsechain.
No, so the design of Pulsechain was to save hexagons at the time. Yeah, I know I said this the other night, but that's literally what it was designed for. Because the S load fee on ETH was so high for people who had, like me, who had staking ladders, right? Where the gas fee was going to kill my
that's
bag.
Fine. That's fine. I agree.
No, it's not fine. You just said that Pulsechain was to pump. That wasn't the intention. It was to save.
Can I respond? I understand what you're saying, and I agree. Like, obviously, Richard saw that the gas fees were too high, so he came up with the solution. Clearly, that was an.
It wasn't a thought, bro.
Yeah,
it wasn't a thought.
Yeah,
it was the fact.
Can I finish my point? The point is.
But you're wrong.
The reason. Can I at least finish my point? The way that this was supposed to work. Like how Pulsechain becomes a success is not by being great technologically or by having the best innovation or having tons of grants for developers that build cool apps. It was by getting our SEC money, and then because Richard thinks that he's such a great speculator, multiplying that money and then re-injecting that money back into his coins. So yes, you have this design intention fulfilled that you have cheap fees.
Like he did with Hex, right?
That is great. You now have a chain with cheap fees, but your coins are wrecked because the speculation didn't work. And that is what I was talking about. Of course, there was a design intention of making the chain cheap, but that is irrelevant because that has nothing to do with the plan on how to make this chain actually successful. And that is what we all care about because we all care about making money.
I think he was forced. I think he was forced.
You just named my point, bro. You just said the chain's down because the trade's down. That is the whole correlation. No one's gonna buy when his trade is underwater. They will only get bullish if his trade is above water. So when does Richie rotate?
It's not about other people buying. It was actually just he was actually fine with no one outside of his hardcore community actually coming in and buying because his own like speculative gains would have been more than enough. Like, trust me, if he had bought 1K and sold 4K, like this chain would be like probably 50 times higher than it is now. So that's always what I'm trying to tell you, always the plan for the glory. And the point that you need to understand is that all of these like kind of arguments about the tech and so on and the development and so on, we have basically a bunch of copy pasted apps on Pulsechain that are pretty old and outdated and so on. And he did nothing to attract any developers. He even said publicly, "I don't even need anyone to build."
But that's what that was my whole point. That was my whole point. Is this chain was just to save Hex. That was the whole point of this chain. It wasn't to make it a good chain or anything. It had to become that, sure. So now he's trying to market it as that. But I'm letting you know this chain was solely created to save his baby Hex.
I would say it was created. I would say it was created to save his holders or his believers. Because in the end, he wanted to inject.
Yeah, money. The Hex are his believers, right? Yeah. His stakers are his believers.
Then we agree.
Yeah. And Freddie, by the way, you have your hand raised. Please just talk because we stopped doing that. Apparently, we can be more civil. I do want to shout out you. I appreciate the Hex anthem. I do want to also kind of throw you under the bridge a little bit and say, remember the drama that you as an influencer caused? And I just want to say, it's all under the bridge, but with a Nerd Girl, right? We were trying to build bridges and you said, no bridges. And at the time, I kind of agreed with you. It's like, I'm a hardcore Hexican. But look at the bridges we built now, right? With all these people who don't even like Hex, apparently. So yeah, Freddie, go ahead and talk.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have no problem talking on that either. So there were things behind the scenes that I was hearing that she was doing that I didn't approve of, and I spoke up about it. And Nerd Girl and I, like two adults, came together, spoke about it, and we came to a conclusion adults do, and we streamed about it, and her and I built bridges on stream, and that's how adults are supposed to act. Like, if there's something you don't like, you speak up about it, you talk to each other like adults, and then you move forward. And that's what I did. And I've done that continuously, and I've done that over and over with people outside of the community. First with Eric Wall, I have no problem updating my worldview. And Eric was on here dropping dimes the other night, and everything that he said about Hex has come true. Everything he said about Pulse has come true. It's why he's won every single bet, and it's why there's so much cope between everybody in here who's so emotionally invested with their finances that are down. You can believe whatever narrative that you guys want about this trade, But the bottom line is Richard is down hundreds of millions of dollars. And if you think that that's by design, I think that you're probably going through the stages of grief where you're probably in denial, right? So
Sure,
like,
sure. I agree. I agree.
Bro,
But what if
no, I'm the one that's
like people
saying that.
like
You're
me?
talking to me directly by saying
Okay,
that,
go
I'm
ahead.
and
talking to
I'm
every one
Google
of
rich
you.
this year, so it doesn't matter. That is not cope for me. That's me analyzing a situation.
And it's you over analyzing the situation. The fact
Okay, but
is he's
you're
down
saying that
and
it's
you're
cope
trying
because
to
I'm
make an
broke and
excuse.
I'm not.
You're trying to make an excuse of why he's down.
Dude, it sounds
But
like you're coping that you're
the point
down,
is
bro.
he's down. The point is he's
So
down.
Did you?
have you ever been down on a
Yeah,
trade?
That's the
everyone's down
fact.
right now,
So
bro. That's what
yeah,
we're
Sure,
saying
so
everyone
here.
has done.
I'm not
Here's the
down.
Everyone's down right now. What are you guys talking about?
But the point is he's down, and you're trying to justify why he is down. But the simple fact is he could have bought it 1,000, he could have bought it 2,000, and then so you're speculating that he is the God whale or he's controlling the God whale wallets, and that's why he's down. But the thing is, like
Freddie,
anybody
no one's saying
outside
it's not a bad trade. No one's saying it's not a bad trade, though.
anybody outside of this community sees that type of cope, and they're like, yeah, these people are retarded. He's down
His
hundreds of millions of
portfolio is
dollars.
down, yes,
He
but
has
money.
lost hundreds of millions of dollars
No, he
from when he
hasn't.
entered the trade. Yes, he has.
No, he
He's
hasn't. He
lost
hasn't
it.
lost anything. He
Right,
hasn't
he
lost anything.
has. He's
He
lost
doesn't.
his position. You're
He
absolutely
has
wrong.
no. There
He's
is
lost
no.
the
No,
position.
no, no, no. You don't
He's
You clearly
lost
don't
his
understand how this
position.
works, Freddie.
bro,
You
stop
clear,
just
I
repeating
do know
yourself,
how it
Freddie,
works.
bro.
in the same way,
right. You clearly don't understand how this works. So let me explain it to you. He bought Ethereum back into USD. He would have lost money. Yes.
To understand what a position is, let me explain it to
Bro, you
you.
don't need to explain nothing to me. You clearly don't understand how any of this shit works. You keep saying he lost money. What you should be saying is his portfolio is down, which is correct. He made a bad trade, yes. But Money Gang asked you a question and you were stuttering and you couldn't even answer a simple question as in can Ethereum get above $4,000? Because if Ethereum could get above $4,000, he's no longer underwater. And if he decides to sell his Ethereum, he is in profit. So to say he lost money is ridiculous. Did Michael Saylor lose money when he was buying Bitcoin from 60K for a very long time? After the FTX collapse,
I
he was
said
buying
his
it from 40K to 15K.
position, and I did answer his question. I did answer his question. I said it'll probably go over 4K. I thought it would go higher, but it went over 4K a couple months ago, and Richard didn't sell. So don't say I was bumbling and stumbling like I
You
couldn't
were
answer. I
bumbling and stumbling.
absolutely answered the question.
No, you was bumbling and stumbling for 5 minutes over whether Ethereum could get back above 4K. And
Uh,
then before you answered it, you said you thought it was going to go to 20K, which is
I
insane, first of
did.
all. So
I did. I
your
thought that
price
it would go
prediction
to
was
20K.
20K, and you
So
don't even know if
he
it's
was
going to get above
basically
4.
asking me if I thought that this bull run was over. That's what he was asking me, and that's what I was thinking about.
So do
I
you
was
think the
thinking
bull runs
about,
over?
okay, everything that's going on, is the bull run over? Because if the bull runs over, it's not going to get back over
So you
4K.
believe the bull runs over?
No, that's not what I said.
Okay. So if the
That's
bull
not
run's not
all I said.
over,
I answered.
okay.
When I was bumbling, you would have heard my answer had you actually been listening.
No, I was listening,
But you weren't
and
listening. So what did I say?
you bumbled and
Now
stumbled for
you're
five
bumbling and
minutes.
stumbling.
Money in Hex, you've done the whole Hex thing. In 21, you probably went all in on Hex.
And let's make it clear, I was made before Hex. Hex was the bonus on top. Hex treated me very well.
For sure.
Okay,
I,
cool.
I had
All
an
right, let me continue.
incredible career before that.
Fantastic. You said there are people from the outside of the chain who are probably laughing at this chain and laughing at everything that's happening right now. Correct? Guess what?
Oh, it's the
When the
truth.
Pulse Chain, no, it's not. When the Pulse
It's
Chain
the
bridge
truth, bro.
opened,
It's the truth.
bruh, listen. I came to Pulse Chain when the bridge opened. Before that, I didn't care about Hex, nothing, right? BSC and Ethereum was all that was important, obviously besides Bitcoin. So you can't say that people from outside the chain are laughing in right now because I've got bros out there that are on BSC. And mind you, I don't have all my eggs in the one basket on Pulse Chain. Pulse Chain's like a blank canvas right now. Pulse Chain is easy. For those that say Pulse Chain was just built for Hex, guess what? The whole chain was forked and now it's flourishing. All the PFP boys, all the JPEG boys, everyone's here and girls that are trying to make some money. There's some blue chips that are taking off. There's some solid projects. There's developers from other chains coming over here slowly, whether they're launching meme coins, whether they're attempting to launch actually projects. We're going to see that. So people from the outside aren't just laughing. I got people DMing me go, bro, I got 10K. What should I gamble it on? They say gamble. We don't want to lose it in 5 minutes on Solana. I say, cool.
when you try out Pulsechain, come check it out. Your 10K will probably last a lot longer. It's a possibility you'll make more than 10K instead of losing in 5 minutes on a JPEG on Solana right now. So people aren't laughing. That's complete misconception.
You guys don't know that he doesn't need Bitcoin money. He was already okay. And then he had Bitcoin money. Now he has Hex money, Ethereum money. This guy's smart as fuck, right?
I think maybe he just assumed that it was going to go up from there. Now, again, you also made a good point too when you said that everyone thinks he's a god, but he's not. And it's true. He's not perfect. Like, he makes mistakes. People make mistakes. But to say that ETH can't come back up at 2x by the time this runs over, I don't think so, dude. I think it's definitely going to come back up past 4K. I just don't know how far above it's going to go. It could go to 6, could go to 7. I definitely don't think that 12 to 20 that a lot of us had in our minds is that possible now, obviously, but it will do something. I don't know what he's going to do then, but the other point I wanted to cover was that not all of us have the expectation that this is going to be a short-term thing, right? There's a lot of us that understand it might not even be this cycle, dude, that he rotates it into anything, and it doesn't have to be.
I agree 100%.